As someone who loves to go on cruises, living in Florida has its advantages in relative close proximity to all cruise ports around the state. However, as someone who absolutely despises driving any distance over 2 hours, I'm always looking for ways to skip the drive to and from Miami or Fort Lauderdale. That's why today we're trying something new, and we'll be making our way from Tampa International Airport to Fort Lauderdale-Hollywood International Airport on board Silver Airways in one of their ATR 42600 turboprop aircraft. Along the way, we'll be showing you what you can expect on board as far as hard and soft product, and give my plus-size travel score at the end. In case you guys are new to the channel, hello and welcome. My name is Adrian and I'm the Express Traveler. I'm a plus-size aviation geek who stands at an incredible 5 foot 5 inches and at the time of this video weigh 285 pounds. I know firsthand that traveling as an overweight individual has its challenges and not all modes of transportation are built equally. My ultimate goal is to give my fellow plus-size travelers a look at what to expect from any airline in any class of service, so you can make a better informed decision on where you can get the most bang for your buck when it comes to in-flight comfort. I really hope you enjoy today's video. If you do, then please consider leaving a like, as it's the best free way to support the channel and what I do as I try to make reviewing flights a part-time job. But with all that being said, let's get this review of Silver Airways started. Silver Airways departs Tampa International Airport exclusively through Airside A and all through one gate. To get to Terminal A, we need to leave the central hub of TPA and take a tram where we make quick work of security and make our way to Gate A3. Here is where we get a look at one of several ATR 42s that are departing this morning. This one in particular is headed up north to Tallahassee. I was shocked at how closely scheduled all of these flights were to each other, with this Tallahassee flight departing at 6:10 and the Pensacola flight departing only 10 minutes prior at 6, all from the same gate. The downside of this is that the flights this early do end up getting slightly delayed because they need to board up one flight and push it back to quickly bring in the next plane to board that one up, and so on and so forth. So even though we were scheduled to board at 6:30 for our 7 a.m. flight, we actually didn't start boarding until closer to 6:45. This wasn't a big deal, but the problem was the gate agents made no announcements of the delay, and other passengers were getting visibly antsy not knowing when we were going to board. But eventually we scanned our boarding passes and made our way down the jet bridge to then walk down a ramp to walk onto the apron to get to our aircraft. And speaking of aircraft, here's our 7-year-old Silver Airways ATR 42600, tail number November 402 Sierra Victor. These aircraft have their cargo hold at the very front behind the pilots, followed by 12 rows of seats in a 2-2 configuration, with row 12 only having 2 seats on the left side of the aircraft, making for a total passenger count of 46, with 1 flight attendant per aircraft and only 1 restroom. Today's scheduled flight time is just over an hour, so if you use the restroom right before you board, then you should be fine until you land. Here's our seats for this early morning flight, 2 Alpha and Charlie. We chose these seats for an additional $4 each so we could be parallel to the propellers that are going to carry us to Fort Lauderdale. Taking a look at the seat features, down at the bottom we have a small pouch for storing smaller items, followed by a small tray table that's pretty sturdy, and when it's not extended, did offer plenty of space away from my belly, which is a huge plus. In the literature pocket, we have the ATR 42600 safety card for Silver Airways and an air sickness bag. As we began our pushback about 10 minutes behind schedule, I realized that all of the windows of this aircraft were pretty dirty and had this weird haze to them as well, so I apologize in advance for the not so clear footage. The captain started up engine 1 and we began our taxi to runway 19 left. On our way to the runway, I did make note of a pair of personal reading lights and air vents above us. Before we take off, I just want to mention that if you're enjoying this video so far and want to see me do more reviews like this in the future, then please consider subscribing to the channel. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers and reach our watch time milestone, I'll be able to monetize these videos and help fund more trips like this in the future. Right now, this channel and the 8 upcoming videos I have filmed are pretty much all funded by my main channel, which I'll leave linked in the description below. If you're into theme parks and cruising, then I think you'll enjoy those videos as well. Feel free to check out the main channel after you're done with this video. If you want to support further, you can also subscribe to my Patreon, where you will get early and ad-free access to all of my videos before they go live to everyone else. Once we start getting Patreon supporters, I'll be able to shout them out here midway through my reviews. Thanks so much in advance for your incredible support and generosity. I'll catch up with you guys once we're airborne. About 10 minutes after takeoff, the lone flight attendant came through with complimentary bottles of water for everyone on board. Honestly, I was shocked we even got this for such a short flight. About 20 minutes in, we reached our cruising altitude of about 12,000 feet, and shockingly, the captain turned off the fasten seatbelt sign. That moment of freedom to move about the cabin was pretty short-lived, however, as a mere 10 minutes after that, we began our initial descent into FLL, and the seatbelt sign came back on for the remainder of the flight. As you saw earlier, there's no seatback entertainment on board this small aircraft, and there is no Wi-Fi either, so it's BYOE for this flight if you're taking it. Before we land, here's a clip of me in the seat so you can see what a big guy looks in it. The seatbelt was pretty spacious and left plenty of wiggle room, which was impressive, so no seatbelt extenders were necessary here. I was also really impressed by the legroom on such a small plane in an ultra low-cost carrier like Silver, and the 18.5 inches of width made for a noticeably comfy economy experience as far as my waist and belly were concerned. My shoulders, however, are wider than 18.5, so I would be encroaching on my seatmate's space, but thankfully I was flying with my fiance today, so she didn't mind snuggling the whole flight. The flights down to Fort Lauderdale are relatively cheap, so I wouldn't have a problem buying a second ticket anyways if I was flying solo, just so I wouldn't inconvenience a stranger next to me. And just like that, in what seemed like a blink of an eye, we were on our final approach into Fort Lauderdale. I'll see you guys on the ground.
Ladies and gentlemen, Silver Airways welcomes you to Fort Lauderdale. The local time is 8:01. For your safety and the safety of those around you, please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened and keep the area at your feet clear until we're parked at the gate.
And just like that, after a whole 50 minutes of flight time, we've made it from Tampa to Fort Lauderdale. This was by far my shortest flight I've ever taken, and I'm pleased to say that it was also one of the smoothest. To give you an idea of how close this airport is to the Port Everglades cruise terminal, we saw the top of the Disney Dream as it was in port right from the tarmac. It'll take about 45 minutes to an hour to get to Port Miami depending on traffic in the morning if you're flying in the day of your embarkation like we did. By the time you guys are watching this video, the embarkation day vlog should be live on our main channel, so you can check that out later if you're interested. 4 days later, we found ourselves back at Fort Lauderdale-Hollywood International Airport, where we started our day doing some plane spotting from the top of the parking garage. We hung out here for about an hour where we got some great views of a Delta 757-200, another Silver Airways ATR in a white livery, a WestJet 737 in a special pink swoop livery, and several others I got pictures of rather than video. We had about 2 hours before our 1 p.m. departure, so we decided to walk through the check-in area to get through security nice and early so we could relax in the terminal. Today we're going to be departing from the sea gates, where we had to take an elevator down to get to. Once down there, you can find several shops, restaurants, and even a United Club. About 10 minutes prior to departure, we got to watch two ATR 42s roll in at gate C9 and 8 respectively. The first one going to Bimini and the second being ours going to Tampa. Once again, about 15 minutes after scheduled boarding time, we finally made our way down to the tarmac to board, giving us some phenomenal views of our 6-year-old ATR 42-600 aircraft, with the tail number November 406 Sierra Victor. Something fun we spotted as we were boarding was that it seems like all Silver Airways planes have special names similar to what you can find on JetBlue or Virgin. This aircraft's name was Pinky Promise. I'm not going to go over the seat features again as we are on the same type of aircraft as before, except in row 9 towards the back, and unfortunately the windows on this aircraft were pretty foggy, so again I apologize for the hazy footage. It's a pretty short taxi from the gate to the runway, so I'll catch up with you guys once we're in the air. While we were up on the parking garage plane spotting, I noticed how windy it was in the area, and I had a feeling we were in for a rough takeoff, and I was most definitely correct. We fishtailed like crazy speeding down runway 28 right, and it was one of the weirdest sensations ever. I've never drifted in a car before, but I can imagine that's what it feels like. Once we got above 10,000 feet, the air smoothed out and we were once again handed a small bottle of water by the lone flight attendant. I also couldn't help but notice the condition of the seats in front of us, with some cracks and broken seals. Once the seatbelt sign was turned off, I took advantage of being in the back and went to check out the lavatory for the Express Traveler toilet tour. The one lavatory is located in the very back of the aircraft, and as you can see, it's definitely one of the smaller lavatories I've seen. There's a pretty big baby changing table here that I accidentally dropped, and it was pretty sturdy. It was actually the perfect height to be a standing desk if that's your thing on a plane like this. Something that surprised me was the free feminine hygiene products back here. I really wish more airlines provided this for free, as it's something I've never seen offered before. We also had a lone band-aid and some antiseptic wipes. There is also an individual air vent in case you get hot in there, as well as a small sink with a soap dispenser. The foot space is pretty narrow, so turning around may be a struggle for some. The overall elbow room isn't the greatest, but it's not the worst I've ever seen either. And once again, about 10 minutes after the seatbelt sign was turned off, it was illuminated for our descent into Tampa. It was a beautiful day outside, so we had a relatively clear view of everything outside our hazy window as we made our approach. We thought the fishtailing at takeoff was wild leaving Fort Lauderdale, but little did we know we were in for an even wilder fishtail landing in Tampa. It's hard to tell from the video, but I'll let you enjoy the landing and be the judge for yourselves. Overall, Silver Airways really surprised me for an ultra low cost carrier. This trip cost me about $80 round trip per person, plus an additional $4 each to select my seats before checking in. Like I said earlier, I despise driving anything over 2 hours, so for me living in Tampa, this option is 100% worth it. If I was living in Orlando, I'd also have the option to take the Brightline train down to Fort Lauderdale or Miami for my cruises, but depending on the time of year, the train may be significantly more expensive round trip than taking Silver Airways, and it can take longer overall as the trip is still around 3 hours from Orlando. As far as comfort is concerned, I was pleasantly surprised with the width of the seat and how I didn't feel squeezed in between the armrests. Because I was flying with my fiance, my shoulder width wasn't a problem, but I could see wider shouldered folks feeling the need to buy the extra seat next to them for added comfort. The legroom was great, and the bathroom situation wasn't the worst I've seen either. All that being taken into consideration, I'm happy to give Silver Airways an overall plus size travel score of 7 out of 10. Not the greatest product out there for plus size travelers, but it pleasantly surprised me. I would be more than happy to fly Silver Airways again for future cruises, and I definitely recommend you give them a try too if you're able, especially if you're an av geek like me looking to check off a rather unique aircraft type from your list. I want to give a huge shout out once again to my early subscribers and future Patreon supporters. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I hope you enjoy your early and ad-free content. Leave a like if you enjoyed today's video, and let me know in the comments section below if you've ever flown Silver Airways and what your experience was. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, and evening, and I'll see you guys in the next video.